Adam, Eve. Then came the hardest moment of all. You were cast out of the garden. Walk us through that day. What was it like to leave Eden behind?
It was the longest walk of my life, Joe. The garden, once open to me in every direction, now stood closed. We stepped beyond its borders, and behind us, he placed the cherubim, mighty, blazing, unapproachable, and a flaming sword that turned every way, guarding the path to the tree of life. I looked back, but I could not enter. The home that had welcomed me from my first breath was sealed forever. My footsteps grew heavier with each step, because I knew I had brought this exile upon us. Eden was no longer ours.
I wept as we walked, Joe. The air outside the garden was different. Harsher, colder, unkind. The soil was harder, the wind less gentle. It was as if the world itself mourned with us. I clutched the garment he had given me, but even clothed, I felt exposed. I turned back again and again, hoping for one last glimpse of the rivers, the trees, the light of Eden. But all I saw was fire and angels, a wall of glory that kept me from the place where I was once free. And in that moment, I knew paradise was lost and we could never return.
So Eden was closed. The cherubim stood guard. The sword burned. And the world you stepped into was not the same world you had known.
Yes, outside Eden, the ground resisted us. The thorns rose, the sweat fell, and death lingered near. Every day was a reminder of what we had lost. Yet even as we walked in exile, his promise still echoed in my heart, that one day, the serpent's head would be crushed. One day, Eden's loss would be answered.
And until that day, we carried both sorrow and hope in equal measure. Exiles, but not abandoned.
So the garden closed behind them, paradise lost. But even in exile, a promise remained. So the garden was closed. The cherubim and the sword stood behind you. You stepped into a new world, harder, harsher. What was life like outside Eden?
It was struggle, Joe. From the first day, the ground no longer yielded easily. I struck the earth and sweat poured from my brow. But where once fruit fell at my touch, now thorns rose instead. My back ached, my hands bled. Food was no longer gift, it was survival. Every harvest was bought with labor, every meal with toil. And with each season, I remembered Eden and how far we had fallen. Work, once joy, became a curse. And I knew this was the path I had chosen for us.
And for me, Joe, life outside Eden meant sorrow in every breath. My body, once light and unburdened, grew weary with pain. And when I bore children, the joy of life was pierced with agony. Each cry of birth was a reminder of the curse, and yet also of hope. For perhaps in those children the promise of redemption would one day come. But the world was no longer gentle. Hunger came. Cold winds bit at our skin. I missed the rivers, the sweetness of fruit, the song of the garden. Outside Eden, silence often felt heavier than sound.
So Eden's abundance became struggle, its peace became pain, and yet you endured.
We endured because we had no choice. Dust we were, and to dust we would return. Each day outside Eden was a march toward that end. But even in hardship, I remembered his words, that one day the serpent would fall. That promise became the only light in a world of shadows.
And I clung to it too, Joe. Even in pain, even in exile, I clung to hope. Because though Eden was lost, God had not abandoned us.
So outside Eden came toil, pain, and death, but also endurance and the faint light of hope. Even in exile, the promise remained. So outside Eden came toil, pain, and sorrow, but also life. You became the first parents, Cain and Abel, the firstborn sons of mankind. What was it like to raise children in a world so different from paradise?
When Cain was born, Joe, I wept. The pain of childbirth was sharper than I could bear, but when I held him in my arms, I felt hope. I said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." I wondered, could this be the one? The son promised, the one who would crush the serpent's head? In his tiny cries, I heard the echo of redemption, or so I thought. Abel came after, gentler, softer, his eyes like still water. For a moment, I felt Eden again in their faces, but even as I nursed them, I knew they were born into exile. They had never seen the garden. They would never know what we lost.
Fatherhood was a burden and a blessing, Joe. My sons were born into a world of sweat and soil. I taught Cain to work the ground, to plant and to harvest, but every thorn cut him as it cut me. And Abel, he kept to the flocks, quiet, patient, gentle. Watching them grow, I carried pride, yes, but also grief, for their laughter was a reminder of what innocence had been, and their labor, a reminder of what I had cost them. My sin was not mine alone. It spilled into their lives.
So your children were both hope and heartbreak, proof of life beyond Eden, but also proof that the curse lived on in them.
Yes, Joe. I gave them life, but I also gave them exile. Every smile carried a shadow. Every step forward reminded me they were walking farther from the garden I once called home.
Cain and Abel, the first children of humanity, born outside Eden, they carried both the promise of hope and the weight of the curse. Adam, Eve, your sons grew, and one day they brought their offerings before the Lord. Tell us about that moment, the first worship outside Eden.
It was a day of both pride and dread, Joe. Cain brought the fruit of the ground, the crops he had wrestled from the soil I taught him to till. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock, fat portions, the best he had. I watched them, my sons, standing where I once stood, before God with gifts in hand. My heart swelled with pride, and yet trembled with fear. Because even then, I knew worship required more than effort. It required the heart.
I remember their faces. Cain's jaw was tight, his eyes restless, as if the offering was duty more than devotion. Abel's face was different, calm, steady, almost radiant. He held his lamb not as payment, but as surrender. And then came the moment I will never forget. Fire fell on Abel's offering. God looked with favor on him, but on Cain, he did not.
And what happened then?
Cain's face darkened, Joe. I saw the storm gather in his eyes. His hands clenched, his shoulders tightened. It was not just disappointment. It was envy, burning and bitter. The first seed of violence took root in my son that day.
And I felt it, Joe. A mother always knows. In Abel's joy and Cain's rage, I saw the fracture of my own choice repeating in them. The same deception that led me to the tree now whispered to my son, twisting love into jealousy, worship into rivalry.
So, even in worship, the curse showed itself. Cain and Abel stood before God. One accepted, one rejected. And in that moment, the first division of brothers was born. So, Cain's face darkened, envy burned within him. But God himself spoke to him, didn't he? What did he say?
Yes, Joe. God saw Cain's anger, and he spoke words that should have saved him. He asked, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast?" If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? His voice was both stern and merciful. He gave Cain a way back, a chance to turn from envy to righteousness.
But God also warned him. If you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Those words struck me, Joe. Sin was no longer an idea. It was a predator, a beast crouching, waiting, and I knew. The same enemy that had whispered to me now crouched before my son.
Adam, what did you think when you heard those words?
I wanted to cry out to him, Joe, to grab Cain's shoulders and say, "Listen, don't make my mistake." But the silence of shame bound me. I had failed once. How could I guide him now? So I stood, powerless, as my son faced the same choice I had once faced. And like me, he did not turn away.
I saw the darkness in Cain's eyes that day, Joe, and a mother knows when danger has taken root. Sin had crouched at his door, and he was opening it.
So God warned him. Sin was crouching, waiting, hungry. Cain was given the chance to resist, but the weight of envy was stronger than the warning. Adam, Eve, Cain ignored the warning. Take us there. What happened in that field?
It began with a call, Joe. Cain said to his brother, "Let's go out to the field." His voice sounded calm, almost gentle. Abel followed, trusting, unaware, innocent as he had always been. But I felt a heaviness in my chest that morning. A mother knows. My heart whispered that danger was near.
And then it happened. In the open field, far from our sight, Cain rose against his brother. Hands that once tilled the soil became weapons. Rage poured from him, and in one swift act, Abel's life was taken. His blood fell into the earth, the first blood spilled by man's hand. The ground, already cursed, now drank the blood of innocence.
I heard his cry, Joe. I swear I did. It was faint, distant, but it reached me. A cry that pierced my soul. And when we found him, Abel lay still, silent. My son, gentle, kind Abel, gone. And Cain was nowhere to be found. The son I bore first had risen against the son I bore second. One lost to death, the other lost to sin.
So in one moment you lost two sons, Abel to the grave, Cain to his own violence.
Yes, the serpent's whisper had reached through generations. What I began at the tree, Cain completed in the field. Death entered my house through the hands of my own child, and I could not stop it.
I buried one son and mourned the other. No pain in childbirth could compare to the pain of losing Abel. My arms, once full, were now empty, and for the first time since exile, I wished I had never drawn breath.
So the curse deepened, from disobedience to death, from envy to murder. The blood of Abel cried from the ground, the first voice of injustice in human history. Cain had killed his brother, but God's voice came again, not to you, Adam, not to you, Eve, but to Cain himself. What did he say?
God asked, "Where is your brother Abel?" The same voice that once asked me, "Where are you?" now asked my son. And Cain, my own son, hardened his heart. He said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" The words cut like a knife, Joe. Not only had he slain his brother, but he mocked the God who gave them life.
I heard those words and felt my heart shatter again. Cain, the child I once held at my breast, now standing before the Lord with defiance in his voice. He had not only killed, he had become deaf to guilt, blind to mercy. In that moment, I realized I had lost him, not to death, but to hardness of heart.
And God's response? God said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." His words thundered, Joe. The earth itself bore witness. Abel's blood spilled by his own brother rose as a testimony of injustice before heaven, and then came judgment. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth.
And so it was, Joe. The son I bore with pain now carried a curse heavier than death, not only rejected by the soil, but condemned to wander. No home, no rest, no place of belonging. Abel was gone, Cain was cursed, and I was left with empty arms and a broken heart.
So God's question, "Where is your brother?" still echoes through history. Cain defied it, but the blood of Abel still speaks. The first cry of the innocent, heard by God himself.
So Cain stood judged, cursed to wander, rejected by the ground. But he spoke again, didn't he? What did he say?
His voice cracked, Joe. For the first time since Abel's death, fear broke through his hardness. He said, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." My son, who mocked God only moments before, now begged for his life. He feared the very judgment he had mocked.
And God, in justice, yes, but also in mercy, answered him. He said, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." And then he placed a mark on Cain, so that no one who found him would kill him. My son, cursed and cast out, was yet spared. Even in his rebellion, God's hand of mercy covered him.
So Cain was not destroyed. He was marked, not with honor, but with survival. A living witness of judgment and mercy.
And I watched him leave, Joe, my firstborn son, walking into exile, alone, carrying a mark that set him apart forever. Abel was buried in the ground. Cain was buried in wandering. I had lost them both. My womb bore life, but sin took them away. And the silence of their absence was heavier than death itself.
I buried one son and watched another walk away. No father should ever endure such loss. And yet, Joe, this is what my disobedience sowed. My sin birthed theirs. The curse grew heavier with each generation.
So Cain, cursed yet spared, walked into exile with the mark of God upon him. Abel's blood cried from the ground, and Adam and Eve were left with the unbearable weight of 2 sons lost in one day. You've spoken of Cain, Abel, and Seth. You've shared grief, hope, and promise. But I sense something still lingers between you both. Adam, Eve, do you blame each other still?
Yes, Joe. How can I not? She reached first. She listened to the serpent. If not for her hand, I would not have eaten.
And you, Adam, you stood beside me. You could have spoken. You could have turned me away. But you were silent. You let me fall, then followed me into it. And ever since, you've carried your shame by throwing it back at me.
Careful, both of you. This wound is deeper than words.
Deeper than words? My sweat, my toil, my labor, all of it is because she gave me the fruit. Every thorn that cuts my hands reminds me of her choice.
And every pain in childbirth, every tear I've shed for my sons, every ache of exile reminds me of your weakness. You were supposed to lead, Adam, to protect. Instead, you blamed me, abandoned me before God himself, and now you sit here, still accusing.
You shattered obedience, Eve. You opened the door. Don't speak to me of weakness when you were the one who first reached for death.
And you? You chose me over God. You loved silence more than truth. You loved my hand more than his word. Don't dare place this all on me.
Adam, Eve, listen. This blame will only reopen wounds.
No, I will not sit here and be painted as the root of all ruin. I have carried enough guilt, enough sorrow, enough shame for 1,000 lifetimes. If Adam wants to keep pointing at me, then let him. But I won't stay to hear it.
You've carried sorrow, exile, and the loss of sons. But beneath it all, do you still blame each other?
How could I not, Joe? She listened first. She reached first. She believed the lie. If not for her hand, I would never have eaten.
And yet you did eat, Adam. Don't twist this. You stood beside me in silence. You could have spoken, stopped me, reminded me of his word. But you chose nothing. You chose weakness. And then you blamed me before God himself.
Stop, both of you. This wound is ancient, but you keep cutting it deeper with your words. If Eden was lost, it was lost together.
Together? No. She shattered obedience, Joe. She opened the door. She let death in. And we have paid the price every day since. I forgave you, Eve, but I never forgot. Every shadow of this exile reminds me, and perhaps I never will.
And I never forgot either, that when God called us out, you threw me under his gaze to save yourself. You didn't shield me. You didn't stand with me. You abandoned me, and you still abandon me now.
Please listen. You've both suffered enough. This blame, this anger, it's only chains.
No more, Joe. I will not sit here in this place and be painted as the root of all ruin. I have borne enough shame for 1,000 lifetimes. If Adam wants to keep pointing his finger, let him. But I will not stay to hear it.
And so she leaves. Eve, the mother of all living, still bearing wounds that never healed. Unity broken, blame unending. The story of man and woman, shattered by the first fall. This is the weight of Eden's loss. A garden closed, a marriage fractured, a world forever changed. And though hope still lingers through the promise, tonight we have seen the cost not only on the ground, but in their hearts. So tonight, we witnessed something raw. Adam and Eve, the first man, the first woman, their unity fractured, their wounds still open. Eden may be gone, but the echoes of blame and sorrow remain. It leaves us with a question that is as old as humanity itself. When things fall apart, do we take responsibility or do we point the finger? If this episode moved you, if you found yourself thinking deeper about their story, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next episode of the Joe Morgan Experience by Heavenly Visions.
And one more thing, this podcast is just getting started. Who do you want to see sitting in the studio next? Should we bring in Noah, Abraham, maybe even Moses? Type your recommendations in the comments, and let's see where this journey takes us together.